Hey guys, my name is Levi, and I'm going to take you through the last few chapters of 2 Kings. You've seen God revealed in a lot of different ways through 1st and 2nd Kings and the stories of these different kings. You've seen this roller coaster ride where some kings have gotten it right and some kings have gotten it wrong, and you've seen God be faithful to his covenant in a number of ways, but also bringing consequences to bear. So we're going to see that again the last through the lives of the last few kings. I want to go back to Joash that you discussed in the last session, or not Joash, sorry, Josiah, and just start at the end of chapter 23, and I'll start in verse 25. It says, "Never before had there been a king like Josiah who turned to the Lord with all his heart and soul and strength, obeying all the laws of Moses, and there has never been a king like him since." So if you're going to name your child after a king of Israel, Josiah is the one. So he's getting it right, but then it says this, "Even so, the Lord was very angry with Judah because of all the wicked things Manasseh had done to provoke him. For the Lord said, I will also banish Judah from my presence, just as I have banished Israel, and I will reject my chosen city of Jerusalem and the temple where my name was to be honored." So we see throughout 1st and 2nd Kings that the consequences are getting progressively worse, and even though Josiah comes along and seems to be a totally admirable king, God says, no, enough. This has to end, this thing where we depend on a king who is fallible. This is not going to work. And so there are final consequences that come to bear. And so this is where we begin to see the interaction with Pharaoh and Nebuchadnezzar and different kings being overtaken in different ways. There's this tension, right, between Israel being a unique nation. You know, God has made a covenant with Abraham that Israel is going to be this nation that is to bless the entire world, and God is going to be with Israel in a special way, and certainly he is. And then there's this covenant with David where God says there is always going to be somebody from your line, David, on the throne of Israel. And so we see this tension between God needing to be a God of justice and bring consequences, and also God being a God of covenant and watching over his covenant people in extraordinary ways. So there's a prophecy in 2 Kings, 2 Kings chapter 20, and starting in verse 17. This is a prophecy that we never see at Easter or Christmas because it's not a very nice prophecy at all. It's Isaiah speaking to Hezekiah, and he says, "The time is coming when everything in your palace, all the treasures stored up by your ancestors until now, will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says the Lord. Some of your very own sons will be taken away into exile. They will become eunuchs who will serve in the palace of Babylon's king." This is not good news at all for Israel. And so, one of the questions that we ask as we're reading through this is why is this exile scribe in Babylon, why is he writing this account of all the kings of Israel? Because there's so many bad stories about bad kings who did horrible things, and obviously you're in exile, you're removed from your country, your national identity has been blotted off the map, and there's just total shame on you. Why in the world would you make a historical account of it, and why would you think that would be worthwhile or encouraging to your fellow Jewish person, Jewish exile? So that's a question that hopefully we'll answer at the end. But let's just go through what happens after Josiah is captured by Pharaoh Necho and is killed by Pharaoh. Jehoahaz is Joash's son, Josiah's son, sorry. There's a lot of J king names, so I apologize for getting that mixed up. But Jehoahaz is his son, so he becomes king. He lasts for a very short time. He's captured also by Pharaoh, and Pharaoh appoints, he takes Jehoahaz to Egypt, puts him in prison, and he appoints Jehoiakim to be his vassal king. And this works okay for a while until Jehoiakim starts to take sides with the Babylonians. Pharaoh can't have this. He needs a buffer zone that will benefit him, not the Babylonians. And so he comes in. He takes out Jehoiakim. He appoints Jehoiachin. At this point, the Babylonians come in and they capture Jehoiachin. He's only ruled for 3 months. So, just not even getting his feet wet, right? And the Babylonians come in, they capture him, they take him and they put him in prison in Babylon. And Mattaniah is renamed Zedekiah, and he is put in charge of the area. He becomes basically a vassal king for the Babylonians. He rules for 9 years. In that 9-year period, he decides that the area of Israel is strong enough to stand against the Babylonians, and so they have this revolt, and of course the Babylonians come back in and they smash him. They take, they just smash the area and take over. Zedekiah is executed. Gedaliah is appointed as a governor, so they're not even going to give him the title of king. They're going to demote the title, and hopefully that helps. Gedaliah is ultimately assassinated by his own people because they don't want to pay taxes to Babylon. And at this point, the Babylonians just come in and they just destroy the area, right? And we know already previous to this, the temple has been destroyed, the city walls have been torn down, everything is gone. The story ends on a very curious note. It seems like all hope is lost. We're at our darkest, they're at their darkest moment as a nation. They're in exile. And then look at how the story ends. So, chapter 25, starting in verse 27, it says, in the 37th year of the exile of King Jehoiachin of Judah. Remember, this is the guy who ruled for 3 months and then was captured and put in prison in Babylon. So he's been there for 37 years. All of a sudden, evil Merodach, so you get a sense of what kind of king he was. He was very proud of how evil he was. He ascended to the Babylonian throne. He was kind to Jehoiachin. This is the curious, the unexpected part. Right? He was kind to Jehoiachin and released him from prison on April 2nd of that year. Interestingly enough, that corresponds with when we celebrate Easter. He spoke kindly to Jehoiachin and gave him a higher place than all the other exiled kings in Babylon. There's absolutely no reason given for why this is the case. There's just, the author is pointing us towards some superintending hand working in the dark, working behind the scenes to make this happen. So he spoke kindly to Jehoiachin, gave him a higher place than all the other exiled kings in Babylon. He supplied Jehoiachin with new clothes to replace his prison garb and allowed him to dine in the king's presence for the rest of his life. So the Babylonian king gave him a regular food allowance as long as he lived. So what is going on here? Why in the world has the king of Babylon, who is self-proclaimed as evil as it gets, why would he randomly, and I think the author of 2 Kings is saying it's not random, but why would he choose to elevate this king of Israel in his court, bring him to his table, provide for all of his needs, give him a voice at the king's court and into the king's life? What an extraordinary situation. Is it because of the actions of Daniel? I don't know, but somewhere in there, the king of Babylon has been influenced to elevate above all the other nations this king of Jerusalem. And so there is hope for the monarchy. In spite of all of these incredible consequences that God has brought to bear in the nation of Israel, he is reminding them that he has not forgot his covenant. That concludes the 1st and 2nd Kings series. Hopefully you found it to be very edifying and encouraging, and we'll look forward to doing more in the future. So thanks for joining us.